He needs not to fall into a trap. Now, according to breaking news from the New York Times today, in the spring of 2017, the Deputy Attorney General actually plotted to secretly record his conversations with President Trump, but there's also more. The Times is reporting that Rod Rosenstein floated an idea to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove a sitting president, this president, from office. Now, for months, we have been warning you about all of these deep state characters, people in power at the FBI, the DOJ, and elsewhere. Now, we've also told you about conflicts of interest surrounding the Russia probe. We have slammed people's roles in committing fraud on a FISA court. This is all now going to be proven and told. We have been right all along. And tonight, we have more evidence. It's scary, but it's also, we're getting close to resolution. We have long said that Mueller's witch hunt should never have happened. The investigators needed to be investigated, especially those overseeing this entire mess. Well, now in this case, Rod Rosenstein's blatant anti-Trump bias, including Andy McCabe, a known liar, and the efforts to take down the president you voted for are now tonight in full view. We have a full cast of characters. Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, Alan Dershowitz, Sebastian Gorka all will weigh in tonight. Plus, we have the very latest on the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. Negotiations are still underway to this hour for his accuser, Professor Ford, to appear under oath. There's now a 10 p.m. deadline. 1 hour from right now, Professor Ford has to tell the Senate whether or not she plans on appearing. They have tried to accommodate in every way imaginable, and you should hear what Dianne Feinstein is saying tonight. We'll explain. Democrats don't seem to care at all. They have already convicted Judge Kavanaugh in the court of public opinion. No presumption of innocence, no due process. We have a lot to break down for you tonight. We're going to go slow, a lot to get in. Stay tuned for our Friday night breaking news opening monologue. All right, he is one man at the very top of this ongoing Russia collusion witch hunt. Now, after Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from all things Russia, well, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, assumed the responsibility. Now, this despite having massive conflicts of interest. Remember, it was Rod Rosenstein who drafted a report detailing why James Comey should be fired. It was Rod Rosenstein who signed off on the third FISA renewal application, the fourth FISA warrant against Trump campaign associate Carter Page. And, of course, all of this, as the Nunes memo and the Grassley-Graham memo says, the bulk of information came from that phony Russian dossier that Hillary paid for, the dirty dossier with Russian lies. Now, for months, we have literally been shouting from a mountaintop, matter of fact, well over a year now, that this whole process is and has been corrupt. Nobody in this equation can be trusted tonight. And now we have confirmation. New York Times reporting today that during meetings with top DOJ, FBI officials, including Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe, who was a known liar, we know that a grand jury has been convened in his case, Rod Rosenstein actually planned to push a quote, according to the New York Times, secretly record the President of the United States in the White House to expose the chaos consuming the administration, and discussed recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment so they would remove President Trump, your duly elected president, from office for, quote, being unfit. Now, this all allegedly took place during Rosenstein's second week on the job. This is right after President Trump fired Comey, based on Rod Rosenstein's recommendation in part. And by the way, under Article 2 of our Constitution, he didn't even have to like James Comey's shoes, and he could have fired him for that. And according to the Times, Rosenstein thought, quote, well, he might be able to persuade the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, General Kelly, then the Secretary of Homeland Security, now the White House Chief of Staff, to mount an effort to invoke the 25th Amendment. 2 weeks into the job, Rod Rosenstein wanted to wear a wire, secretly record a sitting president of the United States invoke the 25th Amendment. In other words, a silent coup against his boss by him, McCabe, others, all against a duly elected president. We are experiencing tonight a massive constitutional crisis, and frankly, this is designed to set up the president. I'll explain what this is about in a minute. Now, tonight, Rod Rosenstein, he is publicly denying this report, calling the story inaccurate, factually inaccurate. He wrote, quote, "I never pursued or authorized recording the president. Any suggestion that I have ever advocated for the removal of the president is absolutely false." Given the numerous sources in this story, the New York Times remains adamant in their reporting. Two of their sources, by the way, we know one is Andrew McCabe and another is Lisa Page, although Lisa Page not on the 25th Amendment side of this. And we do know McCabe's a known liar. But we have other sources tonight telling Fox News that Rod Rosenstein's remarks were made sarcastically. But the New York Times, they are standing behind the story and the seriousness of Rod Rosenstein's remarks. Let's take a look.
This wasn't a flippant remark, and he was in fact very serious. And the circumstances in which it was described to me are different now than what's being put out, I guess, by the government. But it's important that your listeners understand something. That as I was pursuing this story for a very long time, people were reluctant to talk about it because of the gravity of the story, that there was concern that if they got out, that, Rosenstein had wanted to actually, wear a wire, or had suggested Andy McCabe, the deputy director, the acting director at the time, wear a wire, that Rod might get fired. People were sincerely concerned about this, not because he made a flip remark, because of the seriousness surrounding the remark.
So Rod Rosenstein, well, the New York Times is standing by their story. Andrew McCabe is one of the sources. His lawyer admitted that today, and he is saying, a known liar now, that in fact Rod meant what he said. Now, we're going to have a lot more information from the New York Times report throughout the hour tonight. Now, before appointing Mueller to lead the special counsel investigation, Rosenstein floated another candidate, we find out from the New York Times. His name is James M. Cole. Well, that's problematic because Cole, while he was a deputy attorney general under Obama, conflict enough, he was also the private lawyer to Sid Vicious Blumenthal. That's Clinton's personal political hitman. And as you can see, neither Rod Rosenstein, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Bruce Orr is a friend of the president. That's why this country is in crisis tonight. Their bias is all obvious here. This has been corrupt from the beginning. Before the election, after the election, they wanted to take down Donald Trump. Now it's time tonight for the Attorney General to now do his job. Mr. Sessions, this is your Department of Justice. Under no circumstances, I have a message for the president tonight. Under zero circumstances should the president fire anybody. These actors tonight, and I have multiple sources confirming this and more information coming. They are hoping and praying that the president does just that. They're hoping he gets mad, that he gets sick and tired of it, and that they can turn this politically into their equivalent of a Friday night massacre. The president needs to know it is all a setup. He needs to know that regardless of whether he steps in or not, and I would argue he should definitely not, the deep state tonight is crumbling from within at this very hour. They're now turning against each other. It's the president's job and duty, of course, to remove all enemies from within. But, of course, Democratic Senator Chucky Schumer is in meltdown mode. You would think they cared about the truth. You think they would care about fixing and rigging and attempting to rig elections and lying to the American people and propagandizing the American people and misinforming the American people and having real Russian information bought and paid for by one party to destroy another candidate, and that FISA court judges were all lied to. But Chucky doesn't care about that at all. He only cares about his friends in the deep state. And tonight he released a statement that proves just that. This story must not be used as a pretext for the corrupt purpose of firing the Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein, in order to install an official who will allow the president to interfere with the special counsel's investigation. Generals Kelly, Mattis, and numerous other White House and cabinet officials have been reported to say critical things of the president without being fired. Hey, Chuck, none of them have talked about literally trying to set up a president and tape record a president and invoke the 25th Amendment, Chuck. Now, of course, we know what would happen if Rosenstein and others are fired by Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions actually has, that's his department. Jeff Sessions, where are you tonight? Solicitor General Noel Francisco would likely take over Rod Rosenstein's Russia duties. And he worked in the DOJ under President George W. Bush. He clerked for Antonin Scalia. More importantly, he doesn't have the baggage, the conflicts of interest, or apparently the anti-Trump bias that so many others have had from the beginning. But with that said, I don't know at this hour who to trust anymore in the FBI or the DOJ. Well, I do. The rank and file, the people that do their job in the field offices every day, I trust them. Those that are upset about this, the most corrupt, massive abuse of power in this country's history, I believe in them. They are as upset, rightly so, as we all are. And meanwhile, this story is now shining a new light on the president's decision Monday to declassify FISA documents, 302s, other important information related to the FBI, DOJ handling of this so-called Russia objective probe. Today, the president tweeted out, quote, I met with the DOJ concerning the declassification of various unredacted documents. They agreed to release them, but stated that so doing may have perceived negative impact on the Russia probe. Also, key allies. What allies? What countries? They called to ask not to release them. Therefore, the Inspector General has been asked to review these documents on an expedited basis. I believe he will move quickly on this and hopefully other things which he is looking at, meaning FISA. In the end, I can still always declassify it if it proves necessary. Speed is very important to me and to everyone. Other allies, there has been a lot of chatter. Do we have allied countries? We have a Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure, against using wiretapping against American citizens. Is it possible some of their friends in other countries might be thinking tonight that they're going to be exposed for doing the dirty work, sharing the information that they got that would otherwise be gotten illegally in this country with some of our deep state actors? It raises a lot of questions tonight. These documents the president requested Monday must be released, must be declassified immediately. This same routine has played out well over a year now, about 2 years. We have the DOJ, deep state actors have done everything in their power, including lie that this will impact sources and methods when it doesn't, to prevent them from releasing the information that we, the American people, deserve to see. These actors know they will be exposed, their corruption, the serious misconduct, McCabe, Strzok, Page, and perhaps even James Comey himself. The DOJ has delayed the release of these important documents over again and again. They have defied congressional subpoenas, obstructed justice at this point, defied the oversight, constitutional authority of Congress. The president cannot let this go on any longer, because as we wait, the deep state is winning, and they're trying to set up traps even for the president himself. These documents must be made available to you, the American people. Where's Spartacus, Cory Booker, when we need him? We deserve full transparency for the American people. No more delaying, no more hiding, no more lying, no more obstructing. You, we, the people, deserve to know what these top, upper-level people in our government were doing to undermine the people's pick for president. The damning revelations today surrounding Rod Rosenstein, well, it's not the only time the deep state has been caught trying to sabotage President Trump. Far from it. Let's look at this timeline we put together. Let's start in 2015, the FBI opening a criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton. We know she violated the law, committed multiple felonies, mishandling top secret, classified special access program information on her private email server in a mom-and-pop shop bathroom. And in a very rare move, the FBI director, James Comey, he rips the case away from our honorable FBI field agents, the guys we trust. He took it in-house, politicized it himself, with, of course, the help of Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and others. Then they put the fix in. Despite overwhelming evidence of guilt, they end up exonerating Hillary Clinton. Oh, they were writing that exoneration in May of 2016. They never interviewed her or 17 other key witnesses until July. And then remember, it was Strzok and Comey. They worked on the draft in May before the July exoneration. Well, they were changing it from the, gross negligence legal term to the more innocuous, just careless. Just like Sandy Berger goes, steals documents, puts them in his pants, his socks, frankly, on his backside, walks out and says, oh, I'm just being sloppy. Really? People put documents, private documents in their pants and they're sloppy? Meanwhile, the very same time, the Clinton campaign, along with the DNC, funneling money through a law firm. Oh, you mean it wasn't a legal expense? Then they hire Fusion GPS to do op research, who hired an ex-foreign spy. I thought they weren't supposed to influence our elections. His name is Christopher Steele, and the wife, of course, of a high-ranking DOJ official, Nellie Orr, to put together a campaign op research document, a series of documents that then became known as the dossier, all against Donald Trump, filled with salacious lies and rumors, never verified, never corroborated. None of it. Neither Steele himself said, I don't know if any of this is true, maybe 50-50 in an interrogatory in Great Britain. That dossier was spread throughout the highest levels of our federal government, all these deep state actors by Nellie Orr's husband, who became the conduit for Christopher Steele, Bruce Orr, the fourth highest ranking official at the DOJ. That dossier was leaked to the press. Why? To lie to you, the American people, and influence an election to help Hillary. Just kind of like what she did to Bernie. It was used as the basis of the FISA warrants against the Trump campaign associate Carter Page, signed off on by multiple officials, including Comey, including McCabe, including Yates and Rod Rosenstein himself. And after the election, the dossier was then used again as the basis, the fundamental basis for what we now know to be Mueller's witch hunt, or even brief Mueller Deputy Andrew Weissman. This made its way right into special counsel Mueller's office. Andrew Weissman, Mueller's pit bull. He got the contents of that dossier. Right from Hillary to Steele, from Russia, with love, to Robert Mueller's office, all in an effort to take down the president you elected. All right, we have a lot more throughout the show tonight, but we have other top breaking news tonight. Now, for a week, the Republicans, rightly so, they have tried to accommodate in every way imaginable Judge Kavanaugh's accuser, Professor Christine Ford, clearly one of her liberal lawyers, Deborah Katz, and Senator Dianne Feinstein are playing politics. And the sad thing is, this is such a serious accusation. It should be handled in a nonpartisan way. It should be pursued just for the sake of pursuing truth and justice. And as Susan Collins has said, and she is absolutely right, it's unfair what Dianne Feinstein and others have been doing. I have sources tonight telling me that Professor Ford's attorney keep moving the bar all over the place. At this hour, no deal has been struck with Professor Ford's attorney to testify. Senator Grassley finally has had to extend yet again the deadline. Now it's 10 p.m. tonight. And Senator Grassley released a statement earlier. This is what it reads, quote, despite the fact that the July 30th letter remains hidden, my committee has been investigating the allegations and has heard from multiple witnesses since Sunday. Ms. Katz has discussed Dr. Ford's allegations in numerous media interviews and said on TV Monday morning that Dr. Ford wants to share her account with the Senate Judiciary Committee. All right, it's Friday night. Nothing's been agreed to, despite our extensive efforts to make testimony possible. I'm extending the deadline for response yet again to 10 o'clock this evening. I'm providing a notice of a vote to occur Monday in the event that Dr. Ford's attorney doesn't respond or Dr. Ford decides not to testify. In the event we can come to a reasonable resolution, as I have been seeking all week, then I will postpone the committee vote to accommodate her testimony. We cannot continue to delay. Senator Grassley has been gracious, rightly so, and accommodating in multiple ways. If her lawyers keep moving the goalposts and they don't give answers and they keep making new demands and they don't show up, what are lawmakers to do? And by the way, isn't it really unfair for the accuser to be heard literally after the accused? No, I think the accuser should have the right to respond to the accusations that are made. Senators Grassley and Graham said they will not concede that point. And also tonight, my sources are telling me that the conclusion of many Republican lawmakers is that Professor Ford's liberal attorney, this is not in any way, I want Professor Ford to be heard. I want her story told in a fair manner. She's been offered all sorts of opportunities in private in public. They'll come to her. She doesn't have to ever go before a television camera. But her attorney has adopted a strategy. Obviously, it's called running out the clock. And by the way, the Republicans see it for what it is, to blame the GOP for not making proper accommodations when they have done just the opposite. It shouldn't surprise anyone that Republicans think this. After all, this lawyer, Deborah Katz, is highly partisan, longtime Democratic activist, tens of thousands of dollars in donation, clearly has a political agenda. Her views on sexual assault and misconduct allegations have been inconsistent, to put it mildly. Here are a few examples of what I mean. She said about Paula Jones, quote, her suit is very, very weak. She's alleged one incident that took place in a hotel room that, by her own testimony, lasted 10 to 12 minutes. She suffered no repercussions in the workplace. She then said of Jones' accusations, quote, clearly a one-time incident that took place in 10 to 12 minutes. She was not forced to have sex. She left of her own volition. The courts increasingly are finding that is not enough to create a sexually hostile work environment claim. Then she defended creepy Senator Al Franken. Context is relevant. Well, he did not do this as a member of the Senate. He did this in the capacity of someone who was still functioning as an entertainer. Excuse me, Al Franken was a senator when this, in fact, occurred. That's issue one. Issue two, we're going to talk about what it is Bill Clinton did to Paula Jones. He dropped his pants, exposed himself to a woman he didn't know, and said, kiss it. Now, Paula Jones won a settlement agreement, $850,000. But the point here is the lawyer, Professor Ford, well, clearly she has a political agenda, inconsistent views on this topic. The Daily Caller today uncovered that back in 2017, this same lawyer, she vowed to resist, get this, President Trump. Take a look for yourself.
Finally over the finish line, the new Attorney General this morning grateful to the colleagues who fought for him.
I can't express how appreciative I am for those of you who stood by me during this difficult time.
We will resist. It was a bitter feud to the very end.
We're going to fight back. We are going to resist. We will not be silent.
That's her resisting? Now, why does this attorney keep moving the goalpost for an interview? On Monday, Katz said Professor Ford would be willing to testify and do it publicly and under oath, then demands they continue changing all throughout the week, making it almost impossible for Professor Ford's allegation to be heard. She does deserve to be heard. And tonight, things have even gotten worse. Senator Feinstein, who has been delaying and obstructing, why hasn't Senator Feinstein turned over the full letter to Republican senators on the Judiciary Committee, like Grassley? Now, Feinstein knew about this allegation back in July. It's September. Senator Feinstein never bothered to raise any of these allegations with Judge Kavanaugh privately or in public hearings, even though there were numerous opportunities for her to do so. Instead, the Democrats, they've now turned this into a political circus. We saw it at the hearings. They have rushed to convict Judge Kavanaugh without even a hearing, not hearing either side of their story. And Dianne Feinstein took it to the next level tonight. After all the accommodations offered by the Republicans and Charles Grassley, and the president being accommodating on his end, saying he wants her to be heard. Well, it was entitled, by the way, Feinstein on Republican bullying of sexual assault survivor. Well, obviously, there's no point in her having a hearing. She's already decided who's guilty, who's believable, and who's not. They're offering to speak with her. And listen to what Democratic Senator Whitehouse had to say just yesterday. Listen to this.
If the Democrats win back the House and or the Senate, Democrats will investigate what happened, the charges that Professor Ford is laying out, even if that means investigating a Supreme Court justice at the time.
I am confident of that, and I think we'll also be investigating why the FBI stood down its background investigation when this came up in this particular background.
Another senator that's made up her mind is Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. She said she believed Kavanaugh's accuser. She's made up her mind. Quote, denying Dr. Ford an FBI investigation is silencing her. No, the FBI senator said it is not in their purview to have. There's no crimes within their jurisdiction. forcing her, get this, forcing her into a sham hearing. Now, Senator Gillibrand made up her mind. She says it's silencing her to offer a hearing and pushing Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation through. If you allow in every single accommodation, private, not private, we'll go to you, you can come to us, moving the days and dates, and then the person doesn't want to talk, that was the right thing to do by the Republicans. But offering a platform to tell your story is not silencing somebody. And unfortunately, that's not all. Democrats are convicting Judge Kavanaugh before even any side has been heard. Forget about due process. Forget about the presumption of innocence. Take a look.
The Senate shouldn't simply rely on hearing two conflicting accounts and decide, well, we're okay with not knowing. We're okay with the fact that we might be putting someone who committed attempted rape on the Supreme Court of the United States.
I believe her. Listen, first of all, anybody who comes forward at this point to be prepared to testify in the United States Senate against someone who is being nominated to one of the most powerful positions in the United States government, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage.
Not only do women like Dr. Ford, who bravely comes forward, need to be heard, but they need to be believed. They need to be believed. I just want to say to the men of this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing.
Let me just say right at the outset, I believe Dr. Ford. I believe the survivor here. There's every reason to believe her. She has come forward courageously and bravely.
I believe her. I stand with her. And
do you hope she shows up on Monday? Do you hope that she testifies?
I don't think she should be bullied into this scenario where it's a he said, she said. It's a sham hearing. And I don't think she should participate in it.
I believe Professor Ford. I think she's credible. And I think when the investigation is finished and when she testifies and Judge Kavanaugh testifies, I think a majority of senators will find her credible, and I never thought Kavanaugh should get appointed.
All of these Democrats say they believe her. They've already made up their minds. Interestingly, it's the Republicans that are being fair and open and offering opportunities for both sides to be heard. Could you imagine if Republicans came out one after another, they believe Judge Kavanaugh? They'd be eviscerated tonight. The double standard is so blatantly obvious. Where's all the outrage from the left about the allegations made against Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison this past month in August, accused of his girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, of repeated domestic and verbal abuse? This is the bottom line. What is happening right now is not fair to Professor Ford. It is not fair to Judge Kavanaugh. The allegations are serious. This shouldn't be about politics and rushing to judgment and no due process and no presumption of innocence. This should not be about hiding letters and lawyers not getting back to a Senate committee after so much accommodation. This should be about getting to the truth. And this should be about justice. This should be about putting good people on the Supreme Court. This is too serious an allegation, too serious an issue to be playing politics. Now the families of Judge Kavanaugh, Professor Ford, they're all receiving death threats, which needs to stop. Enough already. This is becoming a sick, twisted, ugly, partisan, one side cares about only one side, power. That's why in 46 days, this election matters on so many levels. Here with reaction to all of this breaking news, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton framed Donald Trump, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Fox News investigative reporter, contributor Sarah Carter, the author of the brand new book, The Deep State, How an Army of Bureaucrats Protected Barack Obama and is Working to Destroy Donald Trump. Fox News contributor, former Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Let's start with the news with you, Sarah. I have had multiple sources tonight telling me that when all this information that the president called for is out, it will all be clear and apparent to everybody. And that what the left was hoping for today with Rod Rosenstein is the president would jump in and they'd get a Friday night massacre and they'd flip it on the president.
Yeah, what you're hearing is what I'm hearing as well, Sean. And I think people need to put this into perspective. Let's go back to May 2017. and Rod Rosenstein's letter, to have Comey fired to the president. Rod Rosenstein, everything that happened back then happened for a purpose. He sent that letter, according to my sources, it goes right with the New York Times story. He was very adamant. He was on the president's side about this. And now we have McCabe. And remember, McCabe wrote these memos then. He didn't write them now. So I don't buy for 1 minute the Department of Justice explanation that he was just joking around. I also believe that they're trying to trap the president. They're trying to corner him. But remember, McCabe is facing a grand jury. He is a liar. He's been caught lying. He leaked to the media. That's a fact. But he's facing the grand jury now, and he doesn't want to be the only guy to go down. He wants to take everyone else with him. I think the president has no other choice here, and the Department of Justice, but to launch a full investigation, according to my sources, a complete investigation, and then make his decision after that investigation. Or if evidence arises that this is what Rod Rosenstein asked people to do, wiretap the president, or he himself would wiretap the president and try to push people towards removing the president from office, citing the 25th Amendment, then the president eventually needs to fire him. That absolutely must happen. But
it's not the time, Congressman Chaffetz, and by the way, both your book and Greg's book have done so well because of the truth that's in it. But the president, on both these issues we're talking about tonight, needs to stay out of it, because they set a trap for him today. They wanted him to fire Rod Rosenstein. Now, Andrew McCabe and Lisa Strzok, they have contemporaneous notes from these meetings. We need to examine them, but it really shows the need for two things. One, what the president called for to be released needs to be released, not go through Michael Horowitz. And number two, we need a special counsel like yesterday or a year ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, Sean. First of all, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is there in name only. He's absolutely worthless, and instead of running that department and agency, he just, goes around and gives a few speeches. He's worthless there. I do believe in Michael Horowitz. He's the one that uncovered and gave.
It takes him forever, though. It took him 18 months.
Yeah, no, but he's the reason that we actually have a lot of these text messages.
True.
But at the same time, we absolutely need all of these documents to go to Congress. I don't buy into this delay. They're going to, we're going to come back on this show a month from now and not going to be able to see all of this. But at the heart of this, Sean, a few months into the presidency, you have 7 people, I believe it was 7, may have 6 people, sitting around months after Donald Trump has taken the presidency, and they're discussing what? How to take down Donald Trump. That's how serious this is. I wish that all of them would be wiped clean and get rid of all of them, but the president should not take the bait.
And then I'll go to Greg and get his full comments. Hands up. Yes or no? Was this an attempted coup? First, to stop the president from getting elected, and then to destroy him by the upper echelons of the DOJ and the FBI. I say yes.
Yeah. It's got all of the markings of it, Sean. It's got all of the markings of it, but I don't trust. But at the same time, I don't totally trust the New York Times. So I've got to learn a little bit more.
We know Andrew McCabe's a liar, but I'm saying based on everything we know about McCabe, Comey, Strzok, Page, or Steele. Greg, we'll throw it to you.
It is the equivalent of an attempted coup, a plot to overthrow the Trump presidency. Saboteurs within the Department of Justice and the FBI working furiously to undo the election results and frame Trump for colluding with Russia to win the election, even though they had no evidence at all. The only thing they had was a phony dossier they knew was fabricated and written by a liar and funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign. So, Rod Rosenstein certainly deserves to be fired, even suggesting
but the
to
president
secretly record the president of the United States.
The president needs to stay out of it.
I didn't hear you.
You disagree. The president, it needs to be Jeff Sessions. The president, if he does it, the deep state wants him to do it so they can bludgeon him.
I don't care who fires him, whether it's Sessions or the president. It may not be politically expedient at this time, but he certainly deserves to be fired. And by the way, as a consequence of his actions, the special counsel investigation should be terminated because he's corrupted and tainted the integrity of it.
That I agree with, too. Sarah.
Yeah. Sean, this was a silent coup. This is what they call a bloodless coup, and they were trying to do it, and they got caught. They didn't know how to do it, and everything's coming out now, and we need an investigation, a special counsel to take over and find out the truth.
Last word, Jason.
Find out everybody that was in that meeting and one at a time, under oath, bring them before Congress and make them explain what was going on there, because it certainly has all the suspicions and all the markings.
And release the documents.
Yes.
Demand the documents. Yes. The people deserve to see them yesterday.
Yes.
Thank you all. When we come back, our own Kristen Fisher has the latest on Kavanaugh and Rod Rosenstein. We get reaction tonight. Dershowitz, Tammy Bruce, the great one, speaks out as well. Straight ahead.
After walking.
This is a Fox News alert this Friday night. The AP now reporting that the lawyer for Professor Ford is requesting one extra day to consider the terms given to them by Senator Grassley. I'm going to offer some unsolicited advice. Senator Grassley and Lindsey Graham and those on the committee, you have been very accommodating. You've extended every deadline. I would give Professor Ford's attorney one more day. Let them have it. One more day. For the very latest, we go to Kristen Fisher. She's in our Washington bureau tonight. Kristen.
Yeah, well, Sean, this deadline has been moving all day long. It started with close of business, then it was pushed back 3 hours to just 25 minutes from now, and now with just minutes closing on what Kavanaugh's accuser's legal team is calling an arbitrary deadline, they finally got back to Senate Republicans and asked for what you just reported. They asked for an extra day. They also, as I said, they called this an arbitrary Friday deadline. So I just want to go through exactly what Senate Republicans were offering in regards to this hearing that was set to take place, or that they want to take place on Wednesday. They want it to take place with a female attorney doing the questioning, and they want Ford to testify first, then Kavanaugh. But Ford's legal team wants a Thursday hearing with no outside attorneys asking questions, and they want Kavanaugh to go first. Democrats are blasting that offer from Republicans. Senator Blumenthal says their arbitrary and irrational deadline is a rush to silence a survivor. It has no basis in law or fact or simple humanity. But Republicans remain confident that Judge Kavanaugh will still be confirmed. Listen to what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said to conservatives at the Values Voter Summit just today.
My friends, keep the faith. Don't get rattled by all of this. We're going to plow right through it and do our job.
Now, the Senate Judiciary Chairman had said that if Ford's legal team had not gotten back to him by this 10 p.m. deadline, then they were going to go ahead and vote on Monday. Now Ford's legal team has gotten back to him, but it wasn't the kind of response that I'm sure he was hoping for. So it remains to be seen exactly how Senator Grassley is going to respond, Sean.
All right, Kristen Fisher in Washington tonight. Thank you. With more reaction, the author of the best-selling book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. You know, I know that Senator Grassley, Tammy, has given every consideration, private, public, everything, moved the day from Monday to Wednesday, et cetera. I do believe that Judge Kavanaugh should go second to respond to his accuser.
Of course.
But my advice to the Senate Judiciary Committee tonight is this. Give them the extra day.
Sure.
24 hours, if that's what they're asking for. 10 o'clock tomorrow night, fine. Give them another 24 hours. But this has to be the last time. Thoughts,
well,
Tammy?
look, yeah, I don't know what really the drama is for another 24 hours. If they need it, that's fine. She's known, at least certainly, that this process was started all the way back in July. She has been in control of this timeline from the beginning. If this had been handled properly when Senator Feinstein had this letter, we wouldn't be at these kinds of deadlines, because this could have been addressed through the natural process. The request she made also would literally set up an actual kangaroo court, where you change the rules, the principles, the process of a court hearing, or just a hearing in general when you're dealing with accusations like this. And clearly, it's absurd when you see those demands. It almost seemed as though they wanted them to be rejected so that they could say the committee didn't want to hear her.
I am told that is the Democratic strategy, and so many Democrats, Professor, they have already said they believe her.
Well,
You're
it's
a defense
absurd. It's absurd for anybody to say at this point, I believe her, or I believe him, or I don't believe her, I don't believe him. We haven't heard them. We haven't seen the evidence. You know, people aren't born with a sex-linked gene for honesty or dishonesty. Some women lie, some women tell the truth. Some men lie, some men tell the truth. The one thing that there should be no compromise on, and every civil libertarian and every Democrat should demand, she must go first. You know, the tool of the Inquisition was to always call the accused first. Make him testify. Make him lay out his whole case. And only then tell him what the accusation is and let him face his accuser.
You know, it's probably got to scare the living daylights that you agree with me as much as you do lately. But I am a civil libertarian at heart.
Not on everything. Okay.
Oh, I know. But this is too serious to me. I do believe, I'm urging the Republicans to give the extra day.
Absolutely.
But all these Democrats have made up their mind. If any Republican had said, Professor Dershowitz, I believe him, you and I both know there would be a very different reaction in this country.
And they've said it. They said it when it comes to the newly elected Attorney General, Keith Ellison. They're not opening up an investigation as to him, and there is very credible evidence. Look, we can't have one truth for Republicans, one truth for Democrats, one process for Republicans, one process for Democrats. We all have to pass the shoe on the other foot test.